Okay. Yes. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. My name is Jenmin. I'm the community director from the SPCA. I'm very pleased to be on the panel with all of these panelists. Maybe I'll introduce myself and then I'll hand over to them. So I head up the community team, which means we promote pet inclusivity in my everyday work. So if you haven't got a copy already, we've also brought around the paw-rent magazine, which promotes content for pet inclusivity. So it's great to see some familiar faces in the audience as well. So thank you so much for the support and coming along. A lot of doggy mommies and doggy expert here in the audience tonight, actually. So a lot of you may know me actually better as Ronnie's mommy. So I have a 34.5 kilo mongrel as well. He was adopted from Hong Kong Paws Foundation in 2020, so a COVID baby. And actually, he helped me through COVID a lot. And then he is my muse with my work at the SPCA every day. So enough about me. So let me walk you through the panel, and then actually I will have them introduce themselves as well. So first, actually, I'm going to start with Gary alphabetically. So Gary Chin is the long-term volunteer from Hong Kong Dog Rescue, and he's the creator of the University of Hong Kong Library's Resident Therapy Dog Program. And I'm looking forward to hear a little bit more later. Then we have the Dr. Jane Gray and Billy joining us, yes. Dr. Jane, if you don't know her, she's the Deputy Director at the SPCA. She's the Chief Veterinary Surgeon with us, and she has been at the SPCA since 1991. I might get in trouble for telling you. It's 1 year old, yes, exactly. And she was qualified vet at once, so a very talented vet, as you can see. Yes, as an intern. And Billy is her doggy, and then we'll hear more about Billy. And then Dr. Alan, I'll say the wrong one. McElligott. He's the Associate Professor of Animal Behaviour and Welfare at City University of Hong Kong. And I know him very well as Simba's daddy, which we'll find out more. So I'm going to turn over to the panel. If you can quickly introduce yourself, maybe just telling us a little bit your professional experience with dogs, and then also your personal experience with dogs, so that we set the scene on who you are and your relationship with animal, if that's okay. Yeah, alphabetical order, yes.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming by. I'm Gary. And I've been in Hong Kong for about 20 years. And I had the opportunity to volunteer with HKDR for about 17 of those years. Basically walking dogs, cleaning, kennels, and doing all types of things as they became available. Rescue adopted our first dog in 2007? No, eight. And then, unfortunately, he passed soon after. And then met Jasper, who basically helped me create the Hong Kong U Library's Therapy Dog Program, the first of its kind in Hong Kong. And he became very, very popular. He was an Old English sheepdog, so he was quite big. And then over the years, adopted more dogs. Cooper was also a former breeder dog, and he was in the news a lot because of what he looked like when they found him, until the time when he was with us and he passed back in 2020. And now we're moved into adopting senior dogs, because senior dogs are the ones kind of being being passed over because of all the different reasons. But we've had a 14-year-old we adopted. He passed away just this past May. We have a poodle who is now 16, which we adopted a year ago, so he's hanging in there pretty well. So we're just working with the senior dogs and trying to work with them and make sure they have a more comfortable life, end of life. Other than that, just, doing a lot of work with animals, from either dogs, cats, and anything that needs help.
Fantastic. Over to you, Dr. Jane.
Is that okay? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm Jane. As maybe you can tell by my accent, I'm originally from England many years ago. Actually, I shouldn't say that, should I? But I came to Hong Kong having lived in Asia for a while. I've not lived in England for 35 years now. And I have to say, I love Hong Kong. Ho zhong yi Hong Kong. It's my home. I feel very lucky to have worked at the SPCA for 33 years. Not sure the feeling is mutual, but hopefully it is. I love my job because what I love about it is that the SPCA basically helps animals that haven't got homes, but it also helps animals that have. And the ones that have help to pay for the ones that haven't. And so to me, the ethos is a very simple one, but it's a great one. And I've seen the SPCA develop from 3 vets when I first got here to, 30 now. And all the other amazing things we do in community, which we never did before, because we were just literally firefighting. For the 90s, we firefighted. Now we've come out of that, and we're doing a lot better. I am a cat person. Shouldn't say that, but some people that have met me know about my cats. Alan has had first-hand experience of my cats. He's not quite so loving towards them. But I also have a soft spot for deformed Pomeranians. Now, I think it was interesting what Gary said about adopting older dogs. Whenever I take Billy anywhere, everyone thinks he's like a puppy, yeah? That's your first impression. He's actually nearly 11 and a half years old. And he was abandoned at the SPCA. I'm not a pet shop person. We'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. And he was basically kept in a cage for the first 6 years of his life. He couldn't walk. He was in a terrible state when we got him. So a little bit like Gary's dogs, we've rehabilitated him. And he looks great, but he's on really good drugs. Trust me, I know. And he's on acupuncture every week. He costs me a fortune. He costs me more than myself, trust me. And obviously his grooming is also very expensive. But I think the main thing for me is he's got a lot of issues. He's not perfect. He can't walk very well. But what I try and do is give him what he needs as a dog. And I think that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is what can we as dog owners give to our dogs to make sure that they have the happiest lives. And I hope that we can have some meaningful conversation about that. And I'm really pleased to meet all you guys.
Oh, Dr. Allen, over to you.
Is it working? It is. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks very much to Nadia and Eugenia for organizing this event as well. And hopefully there will be many more like this in Hong Kong, because it's really needed. And the discussion after this will show why it's needed, I think, as well. I've been in Hong Kong since 2020, so not that long. I moved mid-pandemic. I used to live in London, but you probably hear from my accent, I'm not English, I'm Irish. I teach animal welfare and ethics at City University of Hong Kong to the vet students. And sometimes actually Jane comes in and teaches on that program as well. So just in case you don't know, the vet program at City U is relatively new. It's a 6-year training program, and our first graduates, the first ever vet graduates trained in Hong Kong, graduated last year in November. And we have accreditation from the British vet system, the RCVS, and we've got accreditation from the Australasian system, AVBC, the Australasian Veterinary Board. Anyway, so I teach animal welfare and ethics. I have a zoology background. I'm not a vet. I'm not a dog specialist at all. If anyone wants to find out about the Hong Kong feral cattle or the feral buffalo, I'd be happy to talk later. I have done, sorry, I'm shouting in the mic. I have done a little bit of dog work, and I teach aspects of dog welfare. I grew up on a farm in Ireland a long time ago, and we always had dogs, but they were working dogs. But I've always loved dogs. And then early last year, we adopted a dog, Simba. It was mixed, probably mainly Chow Chow. He looks a bit like a collie with a purple tongue, and we got him from the SPCA. And we've had him since the beginning of last year, and he's been great. So I teach animal welfare and ethics. I should mention, actually, when I was in London, I spent about 10 years doing research on goats. So if anyone wants to ask questions about goats, I can keep you going for hours talking about goats. Yeah. Anyway, moving back to dogs.
Moving back to dog, because Nadia and Eugenia
Yes.
actually said just dogs tonight.
Okay,
So.
yes, of course. Back to you,
Maybe
Gemma.
afterwards, after a few glasses of wine. So I thought to kick it off, maybe with some numbers. And I thought, so how many dogs are in Hong Kong? So actually, it wasn't that easy to figure out. So the last census was in 2018 that has official numbers. So we recorded 22,000 number of dogs kept, which sounds quite low, right? And then in terms of dog license, of course, I'm sure you guys know that you ought to have a dog license to be the legal owner in Hong Kong. So between 21 to 22, AFCDs issued over 600,000, but over 80% of them have been expired. So the latest one, the latest number by Destata said we have 7.6% of household in Hong Kong that has kept dogs. So we don't know actually the exact number, but all four of us must be the super minority. So it's probably fair to say that actually dog owner, it seems that you see a lot, but actually we're the minority in Hong Kong. So in reality, how easy is it to be a dog owner in Hong Kong, would you say, compared to UK, Ireland, or the US? Any of you? Go.
I think it really depends on how the person who wants a dog, how they want to go about getting a dog. It could be through one of the shops, it can be at one of the construction sites, they see a dog and they feed them, and then, or they could be any strays on the road, or it could be through the adoption centers, SPCA, HKDR, Catherine's Puppies, etc. So it depends on the individual, and I guess timing, when they want to say, oh, cute dog, and they see it be a village dog again. It's just how that person wants to proceed in adopting a dog or getting a dog. It doesn't mean it has to be adoption. It could just be somebody they found, started liking him, and just took him in and kept feeding him.
Is it pet friendly, you think? Like, how easy is it, like, in terms of pet friendliness once you have a dog?
I would say not really pet friendly, because you can't use the MTR, public transport. But on the other hand, we have a rescue dog. It's relatively easy. We live in an apartment on the 19th floor. So if you were in Europe or something, they would maybe say, oh, you can't keep a dog like that, but he has a very good life, and a choice between we got him from the SPCA and he was kept very well there, but of course he's better off with us than in a rescue centre. And by rescuing him, it frees up a place for another dog that needs that space as well. So it's not particularly pet friendly, but if you're sensible, you can give a very positive life for your dog as well.
May I? God, it's not me. It's okay. I know.
Poor
this
Billy's
is a
done
rock
very well.
concert, is it? My gosh. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to deafen everybody, including Billy. He's like, what the heck is going on here? I would say, having been here for the 33 years and owning pets and dealing with pets, I would say one nice thing, I'd like to be positive and say it's improved. It's a lot better than when I first got here. From the point of view of owner knowledge and engagement, the society is more accepting now of dogs than it was. When I first got here, every dog was less than 5 years old and had an infectious disease or, whatever. Now we're seeing 17, 18-year-old dogs. We're managing to adopt older dogs. When I first got here, we only adopted puppies. Now we can actually find dogs that we never would have found homes for 30 years ago. So there is a nice, I always like to try and be positive about these things. However, I do agree that obviously it's really important that we work on making Hong Kong more pet inclusive. I think we need to work on the people that sort of like dogs but aren't that bothered and get them on board. There's a lot of us that love dogs. There's quite a lot that don't like dogs. And then in the middle, there's quite a wide band of people who don't really care. And those are the people that we need to engage and get on board, like on board the K&B bus, on board the tram, on board the shipcation, on the Star Ferry. We need to start showing that animals are part of a really important part of our life. And I do think it's getting better. We still got a long way to go. I do think it's interesting coming from the UK. One perspective I had, and I'm going to talk about cats, but I'm also going to relate to dogs, so I apologise profusely. But when I lived in the UK, I lived in a family of 7, 8 cats. We had a big garden, a big house. You know, I was always surrounded by cats, never dogs, actually. And when I came to Hong Kong, the thought of keeping a cat in an apartment was abhorrent to me as an English person. However, I'm now on my second set of cats. The first 2 lasted 20 and a half and 17 years. My current encumbrance are all strays off the street, obviously. They're 10 years old. And they live very happily with Billy, which is lucky, because they could kill Billy if they wanted to, literally kill Billy. And I think it's a different perspective. I think it's the environment you give them. They've got lots of toys. They've got high things. I mean, they're the most spoilt cats in the world. And the same with dogs. Simba, if I came back, I'd be Simba, because these guys look after him so well, and he has a great life. He goes out all the time. He goes to the park. He sniffs the ground. He has fun. So I think it's what you do apart from the apartment. I don't think apartments should be blockers.
I think that's very, very insightful. And I think from a landscape standpoint, I do agree with Dr. Jane in terms of the pet inclusive part. We're almost up to 200 now. During COVID, all the hotels were trying to attract you to the hotel with dogcation and things like that. And now a lot of shopping malls are obviously open up for pet owners as well, because they want to attract your business.
Yeah, Billy likes shopping in IFC.
Ah, there you go. So, but maybe we go one step deeper, because obviously we're already on board with this idea. We love dogs. But what do they actually give human? Because obviously we know scientifically they give you the love, hormones, and you know when I come home I completely smothered Ronnie and all of that. What is that bond? And I know that actually to promote the magazine, the next issue actually will talk about animal-human bond. What is it exactly that they give us and we give them as well that's so powerful, make you guys such a strong advocate?
So like Jane, I grew up with cats, but then I always wanted a dog. And when I finally had the opportunity, and my wife agreed that we get a dog, I wanted to, we said, well, we're going to adopt. And what I did was, for our first dog, we had to get to know the dog. The dog had to get to know us. And I asked a good friend of mine who's had dogs all her life to come with us to meet our first dog, so they, to help me understand. And it's not something just an emotional adoption. You have to get to know the dog. And when I talked to my students during the Jasper sessions at Hong Kong U, I said, when you want to get a dog, it's like you want to get a partner. You want to spend a little time getting to know them. You want to spend some time to understand them. You don't, because basically you're just going to get to know each other. And we spent about a few weeks getting to know Jasper and our other dogs before we adopted, to make sure they were a proper fit. And yes, we ran the risk that they might be adopted, but basically you want to make sure this is a long-term relationship, and you don't want to make it an emotional, the dog is good-looking, like a partner is good-looking, but then their mental state might not be so good, or maybe some physical. So we had to take our time and understand them and make sure that we meshed very well and blended together, and that takes time.
Anything to add, Alan?
Yeah, I think it's working, yeah, phew. I always call Billy my emotional support dog, okay? He comes to work with me. I'm very lucky, of course, I work at the SPCA, and all my dogs have always come to work with me. It's my excuse for buying a car was having a dog, because obviously it's not so easy in Hong Kong with the transport, which maybe we can touch on later. But what I always joke is that I always take him to the difficult meetings. Like when I know that people maybe, and I go to AFCD, which is, for those who don't know, it's the government, okay? And I sit on various boards, and I always take him because he always diffuses what might be a slightly not aggressive, that's not the right word, but a disagreeable meeting where maybe government and non-NGOs may not always see the same light. He's been to Transport Department meetings, you know. He's a regular appearance at City U, at my lectures. I think all the students get really excited that he's going rather than me. But what I'm trying to point out here is dogs are really very, like we said, emotional supports. They are amazing. My cats are too. I'm not going to deny that. But Billy's quite special because he just loves everybody. And if someone comes into my office and they're really stressed and they're having a bad day, I just hand him over, basically, and say, give him a cuddle. He'll be fine, you know, you'll be fine. And it's true. Everyone wants, in fact, people actually come into my office not to speak to me, but to cuddle Billy. But I do think it's really important that we do recognize that in our pets, that they are, you know, really amazing animals, both dogs, cats, whatever you choose to adopt.
Absolutely, and that's why I think one of the programs that we try to advocate is Bring Your Dog to Work. Hopefully more corporate will experiment that, a pet-friendly policy. So I think we're really scratching the surface and we're doing some events, but it's not quite mainstream, so hopefully we'll get there eventually. Now,
Can I just
maybe...
add one or two things as well? Two things for me. If you want to be totally selfish, one is more exercise, so we take our dog out for walks. And of course we went hiking before we got the dog and stuff, but now he gets three very short walks and one longer walk. Of course the caveat is you have to be careful with a dog in summer, particularly when it's really hot. But typically our dog usually goes out from 6 to 7. If it was just me at home, I would never go for a walk from 6 to 7. But because our dog needs a walk, then I go out with him. And the other thing I would say is mindfulness. I am not the type of person who is into yoga, meditation. I tried, I failed. It's just not for me, and I think it's really beneficial. But when I take Simba, our dog, out for a walk, it's a bit of mindfulness. I'm focused on making sure he's safe, staying in the present. And so my mindfulness for the day, if I've had a shitty day at work or stressful or something, if I take our dog out, it really benefits me.
Actually, I've got one other memory I'd like to share. Is obviously not right now. Was that you? Oh, that was Gary. He's trying to sabotage me. I'm joking. I think, I don't even know how long ago, it's 15 years ago, Wan Chai District Council produced a promenade before the one that exists now. And my old dog was called Brian. There's a theme, Brian, Betty, and now Billy. They've all had terrible diseases, and they've all involved a lot of medication. But I used to take him there at lunchtime. I'd go with my sandwich and sit there. And a lot of people used to actually say to me, so this is not pet owners, this is actually people that aren't pet owners. And they say, oh my gosh, he's so cute. And, you know, obviously, you know, and he would have a little run around while I had my sandwich. These people actually came to the promenade to see dogs. They, maybe because of public housing or because whatever, for some other reason, they couldn't have a dog. But when we did a survey maybe 10 years ago about this, we found out that actually it wasn't just pet owners that were going to these, dog owners, sorry, that were going to these places. It was actually people that just wanted to interact with dogs and be with dogs that couldn't themselves actually own a dog or care for a dog. So I think that's also a really positive thing, is Billy is, you know, like I take him to the little park in Happy Valley and he has a little run around because he can't really go for hikes, sadly. That's probably why I've been putting on weight the last few years. But he is, you know, he loves to run around the Happy Valley Park, and there's always people coming up to me and chatting, and these people don't have dogs, but they want to know his story, they want to play with him, they want to give him a stroke, and can I pick him up, yeah, of course, can I have my photo? And I'm thinking maybe $10 a time, you know, to the SPCA, yeah. But you know, what I'm trying to say here is it's not just us that sometimes we can have a positive effect on.
To lead off of Alan's about the benefits of dogs, it's also the emotional. So sometimes we found that when we came home, you know, we just had a bad day, and you come back and you see your dog, and all that stress has just gone away, and you're just happy to see your dog. And I can tell you, it's a great way for me to tell my wife, Jasper, can you tell mommy to?
I was going to say, do you feel the same with your wife? I'm joking.
Well, I've already told, I have no problem saying this. I've already told her this. Sorry, honey. I think I love Jasper more.
Yeah. Oh, that's controversial. I think we're sold, right? Dogs are great. Actually, just a raise of hand. Who has dogs in the audience? Everybody? Almost 100, maybe 90 or 80%. So we're sold. Oh, great. Okay, we're sold now. So unconditional love is priceless, but there is actually a price. So according to latest, one of the piece of research that was released by 1 Degree, apparently it costs around 680,000 for to have a pet, to keep a pet. And then I was like, I did a quick math myself. Actually, if I add everything on, helper, actually I'm not far, and he's only not even 5. So my question is, how do you go about to budget for a dog, and what are some of the considerations so that we can give them the best care?
Not going to attack me. So basically, yes, getting certain, knowing the expenses, medical bills, food, care, all these things, basically day-to-day living is something you just know you have to expense for. It's like you're paying for another mouth, right? So, and then you've got the long-term costs, such as more serious medical things. Jane mentioned acupuncture. So as Jasper was getting older, his walking was getting a little tried, so we started giving him acupuncture. And basically, we just wanted to get these things to make sure that they're a comfortable life. To me, it's like anybody in my family, be it my brothers, my parents, any of those, I would do exactly the same thing and have no hesitation. And as I said, having a dog or pet is a member of the family. The government says I'm the owner. I said, no, I'm not the owner. I'm the daddy, and he's part of my family, and that's it. And when people say, oh, you're the dog's owner, caretaker, all this negative things I don't like to hear, I just said, I'm his daddy, and that's it, period. And they're like, okay. So there is expenses, like everything else. You have to understand they're going to be there, and that's what happens when you take in another person into your family, or bring someone into your family.
Oh, yeah, I agree, because when you talk about family, to me, I always tell people it's like having a child. I mean, I don't know how long Billy will live. I hope he will last. My last 2 didn't last. He's actually outlived them both because they both had severe issues. But I'm hoping, I've got a few more years. And the point is, it's like having a child. When you have a child, until they're at least 18, maybe beyond, you're going to have to look after them. Therefore, you make a conscious decision about that. It's no different than having, cats. My 2, live, the 20-and-a-half-year-old should have been at university, and she wasn't, yeah? But anyway, whatever. So I think you do have to realize that it's particularly with cats and dogs, that they can live a long time. And also, what I would say is, there's a lot of controversy around insurance for animals, and there is some good stuff, and there's some bad stuff, okay? However, insurance for pet animals in Hong Kong is very new. In the UK, it's very well established. And one of the reasons why we're still having teething issues is because there's not the take-up. If we all have to get our cars, and I've got a really old car, but it still has to have third-party insurance. It's, if everybody or people, when they get a puppy or a young dog, got their pets insured, you would find that insurance would greatly improve. It's this acceptance. It's a bit like acceptance of anything. And that's why in the UK, I would say 80-90% of animals are insured. And so there's very rarely an issue where if your pet, for some reason, God forbid, gets injured, damages a ligament in its leg, breaks its leg, or gets sick because of taking in some toxic substance or something, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. And the secret is as well, insure early. Billy is uninsurable. He was uninsurable from the day I got him. No one was going to touch him with the barge pole. And to be fair, he wasn't. I know you're thinking there's nothing wrong with this dog, she's talking rubbish, but trust me, if you want to come and talk to me later, I can give you the list of things that are wrong with this dog and the really good drugs that he's on. But, and the cost. I mean, I'm a vet at the SPCA. My monthly bills are phenomenal. And I'm working at the SPCA. I think I'm keeping the SPCA fluid. No, I'm joking. But it's not cheap, because the acupuncture, the drugs, everything, special diet. He has to have heart scans quite frequently, has to have blood tests. It's really expensive. And this is why planning when they're young and they're healthy is really important.
You had a really good idea when we pre-met to how to budget for them, right? Put some money away. Do you want to talk?
I know insurance sometimes for people is a bit of I don't think it's good. But the other way, if you're not keen on insurance, is have a puppy bank, each month, like you would. I mean, a lot of my friends who've got kids that are going to university, and I think probably people sitting here maybe, have budgeted when they've had children for that day when they, cost you a fortune when they're off to university and you have to pay university or school fees or whatever. Why not have a puppy bank? And actually from the day you get them, you put it could be anything, it could be what you can afford. $100 to $1,000 or whatever, and have a little separate account in your HSBC or Hang Seng or whatever account that is that, I have my birthday account. So when I get birthday money, I put all the money in one account and then I go spend it. So why not do that for your dog, yeah?
Ellen, how much do you think you spend on Simba a month? Do you know?
It's not too bad because he's young, but we did start paying health insurance for him last year. He's 2.5 now, and we started paying it when he was just over 1. And it's just over $3,000 per year. And I think that's worth doing. And otherwise it's kibble. His hair grows, so we get him groomed every 6 or 8 weeks. We're extra careful in summer because he has a long coat. And so just to help him stay at the right temperature, we get him groomed a bit more often in summer. But yeah, it's really important to go in with your eyes open. But I saw that most of the audience have dogs already, so it's probably preaching to the converted. They know these costs already. But it's super important to make sure you can afford to give your dog a good life before deciding to hopefully rescue, not buy one in a pet shop.
So just to round up the conversation on money, Hong Kong is apparently also the highest per capita spend on Asia Pacific on pets as well. So this crazy pet economy, and I think there's a few of you actually runs a pet related business in the audience. So any comment, where is it going? Is it a good thing for the animals, bad thing, or what would you like to see more for this booming pet economy?
Maybe I'll go first. Hearing that there are some people in the audience with pet related businesses, I mean, one of the things that we don't spend money on are he gets food and appropriate vaccinations or boosters per year and heartworm tablets or intestinal worm tablets. We don't have a coat for Simba for the rain. I don't like putting a coat on him. If it's raining, we take him out in the rain and we leave a big towel by the door. So when he gets back, he gets toweled. And he actually loves getting toweled. But also, I don't know where those numbers are coming from, but I don't like it when dogs are dressed up in costumes, appearing on social media at Christmas, Halloween, Easter, whatever, with costumes. I don't think they're appropriate, so people should save their money and not buy costumes. Coats, for example, if your dog is sick and a vet recommends that your dog needs a coat to stay warm, perfectly okay. But otherwise, dogs in Hong Kong, they don't really need coats. With the caveat that if you have a dog who gets cold and the vet says a coat is good for that dog, then by all means use a coat. But generally, they don't need coats, they don't need costumes, they don't need Christmas outfits, whatever. So save your money on those and give them what they want to have a good life.
Yeah, it's a really interesting comment because you can imagine. I mean, one of the reasons I brought him here was to use him as a good example of, he gets given a lot of presents. I mean, some of them are great. They're like, little toys he can chew, and he loves chewing things because it helps his neck pain, which he's got. Sometimes they'll buy him a little treat, which is fine. I have no issue with the little treat every now and again. But he also gets given clothes. He gets given bandanas. I don't have an issue with. He's got a Halloween bandana. He has a Christmas bandana. That's fine. It's just part of, instead of his collar, But I do think we have to be a little bit careful about, I'm going to use a term that I spent ages when I was a student learning, anthropomorphism. Don't know whether anyone ever knows this, but it basically is the humanization of animals. It's where and this is why I deliberately said right at the beginning, I hope that what we can talk about is what animals need, not what we think they need. So there's a lot of misconception out there. There's a lot of great owners, don't get me wrong. I think most of the owners that come to the SPCA are amazing people, love their animals. But sometimes, they'll come in a pram or they'll come in their, DJ outfit. I mean, I had a dog in Burberry the other day, and he was so hot, he was panting like crazy because it was so hot because they'd walked him in his Burberry outfit. He'd even got Burberry boots. And I didn't want to be mean, because no one wants to be mean, because it's done in the best possible taste, as they would say. I don't even know who that was in England, but it was someone a long time ago when I was young. But it's misguided. What the dog needs is to be cool. It needs its pads on the ground. It needs, there is occasionally medical reasons why you would put boots on dogs, but they are very few and far between. It needs to feel the ground. It needs to feel cool. It needs to be able to do its yoga positions, its doga positions, like Billy. If Billy was wearing a tight tee right now, he would not be happy, even if it was Gucci, Prada, or Armani, okay? So I think we do need to think about that a little bit, is like, what do our pets need? What they need is really fun toys. They need comfy beds. They need, maybe they need a nice, pen that they can play in, but they just need lots of stimulation, lots of positive reinforcement, which Alan knows a lot more than I do because he's a behaviorist. But they need positive stuff in their life. It's like we all want positive stuff. We'll go to Pilates, we'll do this, we'll do that. That's the equivalent of a dog going to the pet park. But of course, there are some dogs, and I do want to put a caveat on it, because not all dogs are born the same. And they all need different. Billy likes to go to the pet park, but if dogs try to jump on him, it's not good, because he's got neck disease, he's got, so you've got to do a sensible adjustment to their lives. Billy, for want of a better word, is a child that's got difficulties, okay? I know it's a bit politically incorrect, but he is. He's got neurological issues, he's got heart disease, he's got problems. So as a mum, because I do think I'm his mum, or his guardian, I need to make sure I look after him and give him the best life and protect him from things that might not be. But, everyone maybe saw me arrive. I've got a little papoose thing that I carry him in occasionally, and that's like when he goes into areas where there may be other dogs that would jump on him. I certainly don't put him in a pram. I certainly don't, because as soon as I can put him on the ground, his favorite thing is, guess what? If I put him on the ground here, he'd probably have a sniff, he'd probably have a pee, and then I'd be in all sorts of trouble. So that's why he's not on the ground. But I have brought his pee pad with him in case he does need a pee. So I think, he's aiming that way at the moment. And also, if anyone thinks, why is he lying on his back? It's because he's got neurological disease, and his favorite position in life, as you can tell, he will lie for hours like this, is that. It's his yoga. I don't know what I don't do yoga, but
Savasana. He's in Savasana, isn't
Savasana.
he? So in a nutshell, pet economy, if the entrepreneurs can take in a way that benefits the animal more instead of the human, that will be beneficial. Gary, anything to add?
So the food is also a major factor. The quality of the food. You want to make sure the food has the proper nutrition. Color in the food doesn't mean anything. Dogs can't see color. That only pleases the human eye. Getting quality food, yes, there's going to be a premium to pay, but that's what you have to be prepared for, because if you read the packaging, you're going to say, it's got what? And then you're like, I have to look up whatever the chemical is, and then I was like, no, this is too much. So after a time, I started making dog treats from human products, straight for the dogs. I knew what was going in. For our senior dogs, the vet told me to give, because of the kidney problem, give them merino dog food, but I created a more topper that was more better for the kidney, that helped them. And it basically, those are the things that you have to be prepared for to do during the lifetime of getting quality food, quality snacks, or making your own, and be prepared for better food and better supplements for the dog going forward in their senior years.
No, actually, that's a really good point. And actually, what I would say about the supplements is, and this is what I tell clients all the time, and it's something to really, is buy veterinary approved ones. There's no two supplements are the same. There's a massive availability on the internet, as there is with diet, but supplements in particular, there's actually a lot of supplements that claim to do all this stuff. But if you look and they're not veterinary approved and not scientifically tested, honestly, don't go there, because they may be maybe half the price or 2/3 of the price, but trust me, they're not going to do the job that they're meant to do. So, as a vet, obviously, I'm a bit of a crazy dog and cat person, don't get me wrong, but I'm also a scientist. My degree is in veterinary science, not medicine, ironically, but I'm still a vet, don't worry, I'm still a vet. It's just that different universities call it different things. And it's really important to make sure there's science behind what you're giving. And what Gary says is good. I mean, yes, please do some treats for your pets. And what's really good is if you decide that you want to even do like a homemade diet. I mean, personally, I don't even have enough time to feed myself. Deliveroo is my friend. But if you want to, please, there's some amazing sites. There's one called petsdiets.com, and there's another one called balanceit.com. And if anyone wants those, I can give them to you. They are veterinary approved. They are run by veterinary specialist nutritionalists, and they will give you recipes. They will help to make sure the balance is there. Because one word of warning, and I teach a nutrition course, so this is my big bugbear, okay, sorry if I'm on my high horse, is something like in a survey of websites and cookbooks for dogs, there was something like 80 to 90% were not nutritionally balanced. And only the ones that were actually veterinary recommended, or at least someone with a nutritionalist degree, were actually balanced. So there's a lot of information out there, and I think this is a big point in general for pet owners. Dr. Google isn't always your friend. Okay, it's not. And it can be really dangerous, trust me. I did it with my own health and then panicked that I was dying of a brain tumor, It's not a good one. So be aware that, if you are worried about your pet, you're worried about its nutrition or whatever, talk to your vet, because they're best placed to help you. And it's amazing how many, and I love our pet groomers, I love our, receptionists and everything, but they're not trained, and they are trained, if anyone asks about stuff, they will say, please ask the vet first. It's important to get a professional opinion. There's so much out there.
As information overload. I'm going to change gear a little bit and going back to the animal therapy that Gary has developed. Maybe you can tell us a little bit what inspired you of that program, about Jasper, how it works, and if anyone in the audience might want to qualify their doggy to be a therapy dog, what's the journey, just so that we're aware?
As part of the libraries, my job was to help market the libraries, because of course we're only going to the libraries to meet other people, not so much to study. And we wanted to show the benefits of using the libraries. It's a good space to study. It's a good place to, yes, mingle, study groups, etc. But we also found that the students were very, everyone, we've all gone to school, we've all had exam periods, and we get stressed out during exam period. And I wanted to create what we call take a break program. So we basically did yoga with our on-campus physical education department. We did kickboxing, we did stretching, and then I asked Animals Asia's Dr. Dog to come in and bring in the dogs, because that was what I wanted, the dogs. I knew what the dogs can benefit to do. So over a couple of years we did that, and then getting the dogs from Dr. Dogs was getting more and more challenging, because I think people were just getting more familiar with the programs and were doing that, and I know that a lot of the other universities, CityU, were doing it. So we wanted to keep it up, and I said, well, can we start the program with Jasper? And fortunately, the university librarian, the president, had both met Jasper before while we were out somewhere on the street. And basically they said yes, and I said, okay, but I'm going to get him tested. And I went to Animals Asia and got him tested, and he passed. And basically he became the Hong Kong U Library's resident therapy dog. And he became the people say the most famous dog in Hong Kong. But he basically loved going to school. He loved being with students. He would actually block the door and would not let me leave unless I took him to school. Or if I took out his school bag, he would start going crazy and nuts, and he would want to go. So when we created the program, we had a press conference, and we had about 17 news outlets from the region, not just within Hong Kong. And then after that, for the next 3 years, we get constantly getting interviews and asked to be to bring dogs. And basically, I was just hoping. My hope was, first, I wanted to relieve the stress of the students and the staff. That was my main focus. But what I wanted to take the opportunity was to talk about animal welfare. So during the 30 minutes with the students, I would talk about where Jasper came from Hong Kong Dog Rescue, but I also focused more on Cooper, who was from a illegal breeder, and the state he was in when they found him, which was horrible. And when I show the image of Cooper, when they go into shock, they go, yeah. He goes, they go, oh, and they really, and I said, this is what illegal breeding does. And this is what, they don't care about the animal. And luckily, Cooper came over to us, and he basically lived a fairly comfortable life. And that's all we can hope for, that they both, all our dogs live very comfortable lives and not live in a shelter or worse, and are treated like, I wouldn't say a human being, but a proper person. Yeah, a dog.
That's very lucky that it's mutual, and sounds like Jasper's also enjoyed the experience. I have a question for Alan, actually. How does the animal feel? Because for those who have met my dog, probably not the best candidate for Jasper's role. Dr. Jane might be worried that Ronnie might eat. No, he's a bit reactive. He's lovely, but he's shy with strangers, right? So any head petting and things like that, he might be quite nervous. So how do we consider their point of view? Because we want to make sure that, I know that Simba also is a canine teacher. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to realize that it will not suit all dogs, and importantly, Gary just mentioned that he brought his dog along, Jasper, to Animals Asia to do some testing to see if he would be okay. So it depends on dogs. And also, we ran an event at City University at the end of February this year, designed again. Lots of us brought in dogs, but we knew those dogs in advance. Those dogs are used for teaching the vet students in non-invasive things, like they check their body condition score, they have a look at their gums and stuff like that. The dogs are fully vaccinated, and we have their health records. But even, so at the City U event in late February, the dogs were on rotation, so they did 90 minutes of interacting with people, and then they would go away and have a rest. So it's important, even when you have suitable dogs, and some dogs are shy and anxious, and they should never be used at events like that. But then even for the ones that are suitable and really enjoy the socialization, they get a chance to rest and move away as well. So you can run those events and put the welfare of the dogs first at the same time.
Sounds good. Can I do a time check for one more question, or? Yeah, one more question. Okay, good. One thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about is breed. So I think the top 3 breeds in Hong Kong, or most popular breeds, are Shiba, Poodle, and Golden Retriever, maybe Bichon as well. What are the consideration of breeds in Hong Kong? I know you touch on bad breeders, but are there? Of course, we advocate mongrels, but maybe can we touch on breeds?
I mean, we talked about this as well. Another big, well, not a big word, but neotomy, which is child replacement, and we talked about anthropomorphism, and unfortunately some of the popular breeds like Frenchies as well and Poodle, they're very cute, like Billy. I mean, who wouldn't want a Billy in their lives, yeah? I mean, he's gorgeous, yeah? But we do have to remember that these breeds come at a cost, and it's like the truth behind the doggy in the window. And several years ago, the SPCA ran a big campaign and worked a lot with government. Another classic case where I used to bring my previous dog, where I was using her as an example of bad breeding, because they're, unfortunately, Pomeranians, the genetic pool is not great. So the inbreeding is more, and inbreeding leads to genetic problems. For instance, Billy's heart, his neck, his knee, and his stomach are all not good, and that's all part of his genetics. That's not something that's been acquired, it's something he was born with. And I think the problem is your average person on the street doesn't know this. They just see the cute puppy in the window. And, the whole, what's the word? It's breeding on, buying on site. I've forgotten the impulse purchase. I mean, it's fine if you're in Lane Crawford and you buy a top you don't like. It's not fine if you end up with an animal that's going to live for 15 years. So there's a big difference, yeah? And you can't take, unfortunately in Hong Kong, you can take them back because pet shops will accept them back, but that's another issue for another day. And I think, having been here for so long, I've actually seen an increase, and this is my biggest worry, is an increase in the physical deformities and the physical problems from bad breeding in Hong Kong. And that's something, I've seen an increase in people's love and care, but on the flip side, I've also seen a massive, and it's not just dogs, sadly. I know I shouldn't mention cats, but honestly, cats are actually almost getting worse now, because people are choosing cats over dogs because they're easier to look after. But the bad breeding that I'm seeing now, I operate every month on at least 4 or 5 Frenchies, and what I'm trying to do is enable them to breathe, because their soft palates are so bad, their nostrils are so small. As a vet, yeah, it's a great money earner. Not good, and I am joking when I say that. But is it good animal welfare? No, it is not. It's absolutely abhorrent. These animals actually are being bred. If you look at the history of Frenchies, for instance, or bulldogs, their noses have been getting progressively shorter over the years. And with that, everything's getting squashed. All that soft tissue is still there, but their bone structure has gone. And with that, it's a whole heap of issues. Knee problems in Pomeranians and Yorkies is really common. It's something that we do, and I always say to owners, if you're going to be breedist, and I'm sitting here like a total hypocrite with the Pomeranian, but he is rescued and he has got issues. If you're going to be breedist and want to choose a breed, then research, ask your vet, talk to them, find out what the issues are, and at least try and find maybe a home breeder or someone, because they aren't all terrible. I'm not a big fan of breeding myself, but they're not, it's like anything. There are some people that do care, and, have a look and investigate. We always used to say in our campaign is visit the breeder. Go and see the origin of this dog. And if you go to a pet shop, obviously, you're never going to see that, because guess what? They could be from anywhere. And unfortunately, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but smuggling is a huge thing in Hong Kong. Huge. And it's really scary, okay? But at least make sure it's got a microchip, at least make sure it's a properly licensed pet shop if you are going to choose a breed. But preferably visit the breeder and see where that dog is. See, it's ideally, and we always say, see the mum and dad, or at least the mum, and see what conditions it's kept in, because that will give you an idea of the actual welfare state of the animal. I'll get off my high horse
Preferably
now.
adopt, don't shop, right? So, yes. Any build on breeds in terms of the welfare?
When I was sat on the SPCA board, I went to one of the community discussions about the law, and it was basically 3-to-1 of breeders versus animal welfare, and it was, they were arguing violently about the law, And I had to say, I was looking at this pregnant woman. I'm sorry I'm going to say this. And my New Yorker was going to come out and saying, gee, have your baby. 2 months later, have another baby. 2 months later, have another baby, and let's see how you feel. Okay? I mean, I was just so agitated with them, and I did have to stop myself. But basically, that's what the dog breeding does. Basically, they have no time to rest. They have no time for comfort. Cooper's bitch that he had to mate with they had to put her down. She was just she couldn't even stand up anymore. And the SPCA had to put her down. AFCD had to put her down. And it was more of a humane decision. And you looked at her and you said, yep, got to do it. And that's the brutality of illegal breeding. Yes, if you've got a good breeder, I can understand a breeder that wants to preserve a particular breed, but if they follow the government requirements, make sure that the male and female are well rested and taken care of, and that the person who's actually going to purchase a dog is going to take care of them because you want that breed to carry on. Yes, okay, but again, there is some caveats to that. With the breed, they have certain hereditary things that go forward, so you have to be careful with that. And with multi-breed dogs like Hong Kong Specials, they live pretty long and they do pretty well.
Yeah. When I have more time in my life, I'm getting a Hong Kong Special, and I'll take in the old knackered other dogs as well. But I think you're totally right by what you said, and I think one of the things is that unfortunately the nature of breeding, and there's a really good, if you ever Google Panorama, they did a really interesting expose, because what I would like to say is it's not just Hong Kong. I don't want this to be about Hong Kong breeders. This is about breeds in general. And it's really interesting that Panorama and the BBC did a really cool expose about breeding in animals. And I can't remember how long ago it was. It was at least 5 years ago, but it's a really good documentary, 1 hour. It's actually quite shocking. And one of the interesting things, and I don't know how to quite put this, but basically they found that breeding was based in eugenics. Eugenics is the Nazi Aryan race. It's basically creating a race where humans all look the same. It's like, it's great sitting here. We have people from different nationalities, different cultures. It's awesome. But eugenics is all about making everything the same. And the first kennel club in the UK in the late 1800s basically was about eugenics. These people were obsessed about things looking the same. People looking the same, animals looking the same. So that tells you something maybe about this concept. And the fact that as humans, if you Google something like boxer dog or English bulldog from 100 years ago, you will see something very different. If you Google German Shepherd dog from 80 years ago to now, very different. The way we have chosen as humans to genetically produce it's like genetic engineering, really. And the problem is we're choosing certain what we call phenotypes, outward expressions, without thinking what the internal consequences are. And to me, that's very not good. And this is why Billy, if he didn't end up with me, would have ended up being thrown onto the street by his owner because they, personally didn't care anymore because he was too much trouble. And that's a very sad thing. So while I don't want to be breedist, I think actually if I was going to adopt anything, it would definitely be a Hong Kong mongrel apart from damaged dogs. Or I would get a crossbreed, one that's actually mixed, one breed against another, where hopefully some of the negative genetics have been avoided.
I'll just add a couple of quick things. Jane already touched on flat-faced dogs like Frenchies, French bulldogs, or pugs. So of course, I lived in the UK for 15 years, so I really saw the rise of those dogs in the UK, and it's known worldwide, taking over. And just want to mention the influence of social media. So pugs and Frenchies are all over social media, so I would ask people not to automatically hit like on posts about those, because eventually it ends up on some people getting more and more of those individuals. And in particular in Hong Kong, they're not suited to the UK climate because of their problems breathing, but here in Hong Kong, they suffer even more. There are lots of posts on social media of them struggling to breathe, and it's sort of normalized and people think it's funny, or they snore a lot when they're sleeping, and that's not normal either. And actually in the past year, I consulted for TikTok, the social media company with a headquartered in Singapore, and they're updating their animal welfare guidelines, and that's what I consulted with them on actually. The other thing is animal in general, because someone mentioned law, I think Gary mentioned law. Sadly, the animal welfare laws in Hong Kong date from the 1930s. Can you imagine? So our understanding, or the understanding of animal welfare, or the use of animals in the 1930s was far different. There is new legislation coming in. It's due to be discussed. There was public consultation in 2019, and there is new legislation drafted, which will be discussed and debated by LegCo, I think, in the first quarter of 2025 is the latest estimate. And it will hopefully bring in a duty of care, particularly for dogs and cats, to give them a good life. But in terms of breeds, you're better off getting mixed breeds, I think, and rescues.
No, and I agree. And the duty of care is a really interesting concept. You can, when it happens, you can thank Billy, because Billy used to go to the because I sit on the legal subgroup for the drafting of the law with AFCD and AWAG, the Animal Welfare Advisory Group, and Billy used to go to the meetings, so he kept me calm in moments of quite severe anger.
Debate.
And yeah, so I think we're getting better. I do think there needs to be better legislation, but you know, the breeding legislation we have isn't actually, it's not what we wanted, admittedly, for dogs, but it's a lot better than many countries. The problem is enforcement as well, and consumer demand. So on the one side, we need enforcement from the government, and we can push and push and push. But on the other side, the biggest pusher of this is consumers, yeah? If you want the Gucci or Prada or Armani, it's the same with animals, sadly. And therefore, we need to educate the public, all of us sitting here who are probably already thinking, oh, well, we know all this already, why did we come? To actually get out there and educate people about this and let them know about these issues and get them to actually get better education. And I think it's really important in all walks of life that we use social media is a negative thing, but it also can be a positive thing as well. If we share Hong Kong Dog Rescue's Facebooks or SPCA Facebooks or whatever, you know, sharing it and swamping it with the good stuff rather than the Instagrams of Billy wearing, you know, Gucci, Prada, or Armani.
Well, with that said, before I turn to the audience for questions, I can't stress enough about Adopt Don't Shop. I mean, at the SPCA, we have over 400 animals looking for a home. Dogs only at the moment today, I just looked, we have 50-something waiting to be adopted. And speaking of bad breeders, if you go to Wan Chai, there's a whole bunch of terrier cross that are looking for. They're very cute. They are mixed with Chihuahua and all kinds of things that are looking for a home. So definitely have a look. So anyone have any question for any of our panelists from the audience? Do we pass them the mic?
Yeah, hi, thank you for your comments so far. I'm actually a law student and I'm really interested in animal law reform in Hong Kong. And we touched briefly on like some of the areas which might be subject to better legislation, like illegal breeding, online sellers, even pet food as well. Are there any other like sort of legislative gaps you think are a priority? Cat breeders, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The problem is there's no regulation. And I know we're not meant to, sorry, apologize, I'm talking about cats again. I really didn't come here to talk about cats. But the dog breeding, the hard yards have been done. It's the enforcement and the public education that needs to occur. But of course it should be. The government are on a promise to review it after 5 to 10 years. And don't worry, we will remind them of their promise. Whether it took us like 20 odd years to act, I mean, trust me, because I have been here 33 years. I know how long it takes to produce these things. The duty of care has taken probably 15 to 20 years to get there. But one of the massive gaps at the moment, and it's also something that we are encountering at SPCA from a personal experience, is cat breeding. We are getting so many abandoned cats at the moment. It's actually scary. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, our cat homing wasn't even fully occupied. We had a great situation through our street cat program that we'd managed to create this amazing situation where every cat was finding a home. Even 10-year-old cats with a thyroid problem would find a home. It was wonderful. And now, post-COVID, maybe, suddenly everybody buying animals, whatever, or abandoning them because from Taobao, and it's scary, particularly cats, because they're easier to smuggle. I mean, I didn't, as I say, come here to talk about smuggling, but it is a reality that we need to face, and we need to do a better job. Is that, cats now, we're getting them abandoned, pedigree cats in bags outside the SPCA. People are hiding them in trees, running away. We are absolutely fully chock-a-block with cats. And so when we talk about the 400 animals, most of them are cats.
A lot of them are cats, yes.
Yeah.
And rabbits.
And rabbits. So we are here to talk about dogs, but for legislation, I think it's really important that once the duty of care comes out, and sadly it's not 100% what we wanted, I'll be honest, never is. When it's gone through the JD and all the other things, it suddenly becomes a lot more diluted, but it's good. Because what it's talking about is exactly what I started with, so I'll come back to it, is about what animals need. And it talks about responsible pet ownership and the needs of animals for walks. That yes, you can keep an animal in a flat, but you need to take it out for walks. You need to provide it with stimulus. You need to provide it with socialization that it needs. Each animal is different, as we know. With cats, you need to provide it with living space, places to hide, because we all know you need to provide it with enough litter trays, otherwise it's going to get urinary problems. So I think it's a really positive law. Could it be better? Of course. Hopefully it will be enforced. We all know that law, you know this very well, that laws are only as good as enforced. But definitely I would say if there was one you wanted to champion, I would champion cats. And also we are working on guidelines for exotics, another really terrible area, and I'm really sorry because I was meant to be talking about dogs, but I was asked a question, is we've been working a lot about exotics. So we're talking about rabbits, snakes, lizards. These animals actually have the worst welfare of all animals that are kept as pets. And if you really want my honest opinion, and I feel sorry if anyone has, they shouldn't be kept as pets, okay? But that's me, and maybe I'm right or wrong. Everyone's entitled, and this is not it's not SPCA's opinion, it's me personally, Dr. Jane here. But so I guess she's going to tell me off in a minute.
No, but I was just going to say the data supports the other exotics are being abandoned, because I think I was looking at the numbers of, abandoned cats and dogs. Those are fairly stable to go up and down during COVID, but the others category has gone up drastically, because I think, a kid thought, I want a snake, and it doesn't cost much, and then go buy it, and then they sort of abandon. So that's really bad as well.
I think the other thing about it is not just the trade locally, the selling, it's the import and export. There is, for every, let's say, 10 birds that make it to Hong Kong and sold in Bird Street, there's probably another 10 at least that are dead in the bag. And hamsters as well, is because they're so cheap. So, if you expect 50% of them to die in transit, I mean, where's the welfare in that? It's appalling. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse. You're asking me these things I feel very strongly about.
No, I think to add from my point of view, actually the judiciary should be harsher as well, because obviously you often only get, A, you cannot prosecute, B, you only get community hours, and C, the fine is like $200, $2,000. So, yeah. Any more questions for the panel? Yes, there's one at the back.
Hi, I'm Raina. I'm actually Nadia's mother. Not saying that for any, but we had a beautiful dog last year. He passed away sadly at 7 years old. He's a mixed breed. And he was a beautiful, beautiful dog. He hiked up with us and all over Hong Kong. And Nadia and I and my other two daughters really are still in shock. We are still devastated by his death, his sudden death. it wasn't a sudden death. The story was when he was playing with my daughter's dog at home. She was another mixed breed. We don't know what happened, but in that same night, his backside started to fall backwards. And the next day, it just got worse. And then I was desperate, obviously in tears, shattered, and we couldn't find help. It was really, shocking that Hong Kong does not have, I want to ask you, why isn't there a dispatch, someone you can call that can easily access a hospital, emergency services, for an ambulance service, an MRI, somebody that can talk you through on the phone to say, okay, what is your dog going through? Instead of going to one vet to another vet, by then my dog's chances of surviving is diminished, hour by hour. I mean, it was a spinal, his spinal cord was shattered. So in the end, I found out, I call, there's only 2 hospitals that have an MRI. It's City U, and the other one was the AMA in Tsim Sha Tsui. And there were also 2 surgeons only that could operate on our dog, Dr. Shan Go, and I don't know who the other doctor was at the City U. But my question is, why does this keep happening? Why? Because I've found out that just so many dogs with spinal cord surgeries, and there's so few doctors, and one is, why can't we have a dispatch service readily available for all?
Dispatch service is obviously something that's almost, maybe it's a gap in the market for someone, actually, to be fair. Obviously for stray animals and animals that are knocked down in the field, the SPCA had their rescue vans and things, and obviously that's something different. But it is probably a gap in the market. What I would say about, interesting enough now, we do have more neurologists in Hong Kong. Maybe at the time we didn't. There is at least 1 or 2 more. And actually MRIs, there's a lot of places now that do have MRIs. The problem with an MRI is I think people need to understand that they're cost $1 million Hong Kong dollars to run, or plus each year. So there's not many practices that can, and you need at least 6 or 7 MRIs a week. When we go to human MRI centers, and I'm not trying to defend the veterinary profession, I'm just being honest with the reality of numbers here, is when you go to a veterinary when you go to your doctor, you have designated MRI centers, designated CT centers. Think how many they're doing every day. They're doing, it's just like, I've been for CTs and MRIs myself for my knee, my back. It's like a shop, okay? But when you're talking about animals, there's not that many that need MRIs. It's mainly spinal, because most of the things you can diagnose through X-ray and other things. Also, you need to anesthetize the animal to do it. Can you imagine an animal staying still? Has anyone had an MRI here? It's not nice, okay? It's very noisy. You have to have headphones. It has to be asleep. So it has to be done under a controlled environment. I've done some. My old dog had to have CT scans because she had a tumor, and I wanted to know whether the tumors had spread. But it's not as easy as it is with humans. So I do think sometimes we need to realize that not every veterinary practice can afford. At the moment, the SPCA can't afford an MRI because I'm sure we could find a nice donor who would give us one. It's the running costs. They are astronomical. They would send us into bankruptcy. In order to run an MRI, you need a very high turnover of people. So hopefully that explains why. But there are actually a lot of MRIs now. VSH have MRIs. There are about, I think, 7 to 10 centers in Hong Kong that have MRI. There are more neurologists. I know City U and VSH have neurologists now, and there is going to be a neurologist in some of the other specialty centers. I think we also need to realize that neurology and spinal surgery is a massive speciality. It's not it's not general surgery. And the number of animals that require spinal surgery is not that many compared. I know people are thinking it's a lot, but we're looking at it in a much more sort of narrow procedure. My friend's actually dog, very good friend of both of us, Lucy. Oh. Her dog had spinal, trustee of SPCA. It got sent to City U. It had spinal surgery last week. It's doing really well. It's now having physio at the SPCA. So it depends on the spinal surgery as well, because if it's a sudden traumatic injury, the chance of recovery is less, sadly, than if it's a gradual disc protrusion, a gradual slipping of the disc. So yeah, I mean, I agree, maybe this is a really interesting topic for some entrepreneur in Hong Kong can set up. I do think there were some, actually, I do know in the noughties, there were some people set up an animal ambulance, but legally people were getting quite, there's some issues about it because you theoretically need a trained person, It's not as simple as just a Joe Bloggs going to your house and picking the animal up. So unfortunately the legality of it isn't as simple, because when you think about ambulances and humans, these are trained paramedics, they're not just a guy with a van, yeah? So I think we have to
I think there is one in Hong Kong, and what I was going to say was, I don't know if all of you know that we just opened the Tingyi Center, right? We have the room ready for the MRI, but we're waiting for a donor.
Yeah.
So that's the...
Not yet.
Yeah. But then the reason why we don't have those surgeons is Hong Kong has a challenge to attract talent overall, and then it's hard for you to hire, I know, for a long time as well. So I think it's the place to attract the right talent as well.
It was very difficult for the veterinary profession in Hong Kong. We had to close our 24-hour hospital in Hong Kong because the vets' exodus was huge, and we couldn't attract anyone to come into Hong Kong. I think we all know what COVID was like. Now it's very different, and we've reopened, haven't we, Billy? We've reopened our 24-hour hospital as of last month. So things are returning to normal. But the last few years have been really difficult for the veterinary profession. Let's hope the next 10 are going to be a lot better.
Yeah, and we had the same issue with our first dog. In hindsight, we now know where the 24-hour hospitals are near us, so that we know we can take them ourselves. Hopefully, back then we didn't have a car, but now we know where to go, and we know what they specialize. So in a sense, you kind of do have to have that prepared just in case, and just have that number ready on the refrigerator, and then just tell them you're coming, and then they'll get the specialist in, and just like any other doctor in a human hospital, you break an arm, you break whatever, they're going to call in a specialist. They're going to do the same. You're going to have to call them saying, I got to come in, or emergency room, something's gone wrong. Same thing we do with a dog. We find out which ones are 24 hours, if they have any specialties that we can take note of, but we know where they are and how fast we can get there.
That's a good point as well. If you go to the Veterinary Surgeons Board of Hong Kong, which has all the registered vets in Hong Kong, there is actually a list of those who are registered specialists and where they work. So maybe one other way as well, if you're if you ever are in a pickle or you want to see, is that you'll see, I think there's about, can't remember now, 50 or 60, I actually can't remember the number, but there's quite a lot of registered veterinary specialists. However, you have to understand that some of them also come in and out of Hong Kong, because Hong Kong doesn't have the demographic to support 1 million specialists, okay? There's not the population of animals. So obviously now they, some of them are visiting specialists as well, just to let you know that.
As I predicted, I knew that we ran out of time to touch on subjects, and I think the last one which brought up was actually pet bereavement. But I think that's for next time. If you guys are interested, I'm sure Nadia will host another one. So thank you for all the panelists and the expert, and Billy, and thank you Nadia and 1880 to host us. Thank you.